Welcome to David's Stories. Today we follow Ed Anderson, a retired inspector whose midnight call from grandson Ethan exposes stepfather Carter's abuse, sparking a desperate fight for justice, family redemption, and the Anderson protocol that saves countless kids. Subscribe and hit the bell for weekly videos uncovering truths. Share your thoughts below. Let's start the stories. My name is Ed Anderson, 63 years old, retired for 8 of them, and I thought the rest of my life would be slow mornings, black coffee, and the yellowed pages of old books on my oak shelf. I spent 35 years as a police inspector in this sprawling city, saw enough shadows to know they never truly sleep. But that night when my phone buzzed on the nightstand at 3:14 a.m., I knew the darkness had come knocking at my own door. The ring sliced through the silence like a blade. I jolted upright, heart pounding in my chest like a rookie on his first call. The screen glowed with a name that hit me like a fist: Ethan. My grandson, 16 years old, the kid I used to carry on my shoulders when he was too small to reach the light switch. Calling me at this hour. I pressed answer, my voice rough with sleep. "Hello?" A sob crackled through the line. Not the cry of a child, but the choked, desperate sound of a boy trying to hold himself together. "Grandpa!" Ethan's voice trembled, each word clawing its way past a wall of fear. I'm I'm at the police station, 7th precinct. They arrested me. I swung my legs out of bed, the cold floor biting my feet. "What are you talking about?" "Slow down, Ethan. Are you okay, Carter?" "Carter says I attacked him, but it's not true, Grandpa. He hit me first. I just pushed him away." His voice broke, splintering into pieces. "My face hurts. I'm scared. The inspector here, he's friends with Carter. He doesn't believe me." Blood rushed to my head, hot and dizzying. Carter Vance, that name was an old wound, rusted but still sharp. I stood in the dark, fumbling for clothes. "Listen to me, Ethan. Don't say another word. Don't talk to anyone. I'm coming. You stay put. You hear me?" "Yes." His voice shrank like he was afraid someone might overhear. "Hurry, Grandpa." I hung up my pulse, hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. The bedroom was pitch black, only the faint glow of streetlights seeping through the curtains, catching the edge of an old photo on the wall. Me, my son Daniel, my daughter Mary, and a tiny Ethan grinning wide in my arms. Mary's been gone 5 years now, taken by a car crash. Daniel followed when Ethan was 8, another highway tragedy. That left Grace, Ethan's mom, and Carter, the man I never trusted, not for a single second. I pulled on jeans, a shirt, my fingers shaking as I buttoned on. My mind painted Ethan in a holding cell, skinny, messy hair, round glasses, always buried in a book instead of shooting hoops. He didn't start fights. If he said Carter hit him first, then Carter hit him first. I knelt by the bed, opened the small safe tucked underneath, and pulled out my old inspector's badge. The metal was cold, heavy with memory. I was retired, but this badge still carried weight, not with the law, maybe, but with the people who used to work under me. I slipped it into my pocket, grabbed my keys, and stepped into the night. The air was sharp, the streets empty except for the distant flicker of freeway lights. I slid into my old Ford, hands gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Every mile, Carter's face flashed in my mind. He showed up right after Mary died, like some kind of savior. Handsome, smooth-talking, his own company connections at City Hall. Grace, shattered by grief, fell into his arms like a drowning woman clutching a raft. I fought it, but she said, "You don't get it, Dad. I need stability. Ethan needs a father." I never bought Carter's act. His smile was too perfect, his words too polished. He called me Mr. Anderson with honey in his voice, but his eyes were ice. I'd seen him look at Ethan like a broken appliance, not a kid, but something in his way. The 7th precinct loomed ahead, a squat building with a flickering neon sign. I spent my first 10 years on the force here. The smell of stale coffee, disinfectant, the hum of printers in the dead of night. It all hit me like an old friend I didn't want to see. I parked, took a deep breath, and walked in. Inside, the air was thick with tension. A young officer sat behind the desk, eyes glued to her computer. I approached, keeping my voice steady but firm. "Evening, I'm Ed Anderson, former inspector. My grandson Ethan Alvarado is being held here. I want to see him." She glanced up, indifferent. "One moment." She picked up the internal phone. Inspector Camacho, there's a man here says he's the grandfather of the kid detained for assault. Camacho. The name landed like a punch to the gut. Victor Camacho. We worked together 20 years ago. Heavy-set graying mustache, small suspicious eyes. I always knew he bent the rules, took cash under the table, looked the other way for the right people. We were never friends. The inner door swung open. Camacho stepped out, bulky, his shirt straining at the buttons. He looked at me and smirked a crooked twist of his lips. Well, well, Ed Anderson, long time no see, partner. Not here to catch up, Victor. I said, my voice like steel. I want to see my grandson. Now, sure. Come to my office, he gestured. I followed him down the hall. At the end, I saw the temporary holding cells. In one, Ethan sat on a bench, head bowed. I started toward him, but Camacho blocked me. You and me talk first, Ed. It's complicated. In his office, Camacho settled behind his desk and I took the chair across from him. On his desk was a framed photo, Camacho on a hunting trip with a group of men. I spotted Carter Vance right away grinning, holding a rifle. The connection was glaring. Your grandson assaulted his stepfather tonight, Camacho said, his tone practiced confident. Busted his lip, nearly broke his nose. Carter's at the hospital getting checked. We've got video from the house's security camera. Kid lost it. I want to see that video. No problem. He turned his monitor toward me and played a file. The screen showed a living room. Carter walked in talking. Ethan appeared clearly upset. Then my grandson shoved Carter, who fell backward, hitting a table. The clip ended. That's it, I asked. Where's the rest? Where's the part where Carter hit my grandson? That's all we've got, Ed. Carter's pressing assault charges. The kid's got a history of violence at school. That's a lie. Ethan's never had a disciplinary issue. We've got reports that say otherwise. I stood, anger boiling in my veins. I want to see my grandson. Right now, 5 minutes. He led me to the cell. When Ethan saw me, he shot to his feet. His left eye was swollen purple. His eyebrow split, his lip puffy. Seeing him like that tore something deep inside me. Pain and rage twisted together. Grandpa, his voice cracked. I stepped into the cell, pulled him into a hug. He trembled in my arms, fragile as a bird. It's okay, Ethan. I'm getting you out of here. I kept my voice low. What really happened? Carter came home drunk. Like always, Ethan whispered, tears streaking his face. He started yelling, said I stole money from his wallet. I told him I didn't, and he punched me. I just pushed him to get him off, but he hit the table. Then he called the cops, said I attacked him. Where was your mom? She's in Dallas for work. She's back tomorrow. His voice dropped even lower. It's not the first time, Grandpa. He always threatens me, says no one will believe me. I glanced at Camacho, leaning impatiently by the door. I'm getting you out, I said, gripping his shoulder. You are not spending another minute in here. I stepped out and faced Camacho. My grandson's face is covered in bruises. Why isn't Carter in a cell? Why doesn't your report mention he assaulted a minor? Mr. Vance says the kid got those injuries resisting arrest. That's nonsense, and you know it. My voice was a growl. I want a doctor to examine Ethan now and document every injury. If you don't, I'm calling the duty DA to report irregularities. Camacho stared at me, weighing the threat. Finally, he sighed. Fine, I'll call the on-duty medical examiner. But the kid's staying here tonight, and he sees a judge tomorrow. We'll see about that. As Camacho walked off to make the call, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't touched in years. 3 rings, then a woman's voice. Lieutenant Roberts, who's this? April, it's Ed Anderson, 7th Precinct. I need you, now. April Roberts, one of the few on the force I trusted without question. Young, sharp, and most importantly, incorruptible. I'm on night shift, she said. I'll be there in 20. I hung up and looked back at Ethan. He was slumped on the bench, exhausted, but with a flicker of strength in his eyes, the kind I'd always admired. I knew this night was only the beginning. But I also knew no matter what it took, I wouldn't let my grandson face this alone. I stood outside the holding cell, my fists clenched so tight my knuckles ached, eyes locked on Ethan. He sat there, shoulders trembling, his skinny arms wrapped around his knees like he was trying to fold himself into nothing. Every shaky breath he took carried a stifled sob that cut me deeper than any knife. I wanted to tear that iron door off its hinges, pull him out of that cold cage and carry him home. But I couldn't, not yet, not while Camacho was watching, not while the system still had its claws in my boy. The precinct hummed with the low drone of fluorescent lights and the occasional crackle of a radio. The air smelled of burnt coffee and bleach, a scent that dragged me back to my own nights in rooms like this, chasing leads breaking suspects, or sometimes breaking myself. But this was different. This was Ethan, my grandson, the kid who used to fall asleep on my couch with a book on his chest, who asked me once if cops ever got scared. I told him, yeah, we do, but we don't let it stop us. I hoped I could live up to that now. Camacho came back down the hall, his heavy steps echoing like a warning. Doctor's on his way, he grunted, not meeting my eyes. But don't get your hopes up, Ed. This ain't changing anything. We'll see, I said, my voice low but steady. I turned back to Ethan through the bars. Hang in there, kid. I'm right here. He nodded barely, his glasses fogging slightly from the tears he was fighting. I wanted to say more, to promise him the world, but Camacho was hovering, and I knew better than to give him anything to twist. Instead, I leaned closer to the bars and whispered, "You're stronger than you know, Ethan. Just hold on." The minutes dragged like hours. I paced the hallway, my boots scuffing the worn linoleum. Every creak of the building, every murmur from the bullpen set my nerves on edge. I kept replaying Ethan's voice on the phone. He hit me first. I'm scared. Carter's smug face flashed in my mind, that perfect smile hiding something rotten. I'd seen men like him before, charming on the surface, cruel underneath. But this wasn't some case file. This was family. The outer door swung open, and in walked Dr. Mendoza, a young guy who looked like he'd just graduated med school yesterday. His white coat was crisp, his face serious but tired. Camacho greeted him with a nod. "This way, Doc. Kids in the cell." I stepped forward. "I'm coming too." Camacho opened his mouth to argue, but I cut him off with a look that could have frozen fire. He backed off, muttering something under his breath. I followed Mendoza to the cell where April Roberts was already waiting. She must have slipped in while I was pacing. Her uniform was sharp, her dark hair pulled back, and her eyes steady, unflinching, locked onto mine. "Inspector," she said, shaking my hand firmly. "It's been too long. You'll always be sir to me, Lieutenant," I said, managing a faint smile. "Thanks for coming. You taught me everything I know about doing this job." "Right," she replied. "Let's make sure it's done right tonight." Camacho unlocked the cell, and Mendoza stepped in, setting his kit on the bench. Ethan looked up, his bruised face pale under the harsh lights. "This is Dr. Mendoza," I said softly. "He's here to check your injuries." "Tell him exactly what happened, okay?" Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. Mendoza knelt in front of him, his voice gentle but professional. "Can you tell me how you got these injuries, son?" Ethan glanced at me, and I gave him a small nod. "My stepfather hit me," he said, his voice shaky but clear. "First here." He pointed to his blackened eye. Then he shoved me against the wall. I hit my head and cut my eyebrow on a shelf. "When did this happen?" Mendoza asked, snapping photos with a small camera. "Tonight, a little after 11. Mendoza jotted notes on an official form, his pen scratching loudly in the quiet. He measured the bruises, examined the cut, and checked Ethan's scalp for other injuries. I stood by the door, watching every move, my heart pounding with a mix of hope and dread. Camacho lingered outside, then arms crossed his face, a mask of impatience. When Mendoza finished, he turned to April. "The injuries are consistent with his account. The periorbital hematoma, black eye, shows bruising about 4 to 5 hours old, likely from a direct punch. The eyebrow laceration is typical of an impact with a sharp-edged object, not a fist. No signs of resisting arrest injuries like wrist abrasions or defensive wounds." April nodded, her jaw tight. "Thank you, doctor. I need that report ASAP." "You'll have it in an hour," he said, packing his kit. As he left, April pulled me aside, her voice low. "This contradicts Camacho's report. He claimed Ethan's injuries came from resisting arrest." "Of course it does," I whispered back. "Camacho's covering for Carter. I saw the video he showed me, a clip that conveniently cuts off before the truth." April's eyes narrowed. I reviewed it too. "The metadata's off. The file was edited 2 hours ago. The original has to be longer. Can you get it? I need a warrant to access their home system. For that, I need proof of tampering." She glanced at Ethan, who was watching us, exhausted but alert. "Ethan, you mentioned a neighbor with cameras." He perked up slightly. "Mrs. Klein, she's got cameras pointed at our driveway, always recording. Says people steal her flower pots." April's face lit with a spark of hope. Address 247 Jacaranda Drive, Valley Neighborhood, Ethan said. I'm on it, April said. If her footage shows anything different, we can flip this whole thing. She turned to me. Stay with him, Grandpa. I won't be long. I'm not leaving him, I said, using the words she'd slipped into Grandpa. It felt right, like we were already a team. This stinks of corruption, April. You know it gets under my skin. Same here, she said, her smile fierce. We're not done yet. She strode out her boots, clicking with purpose. I sat on the bench next to Ethan, the cold metal biting through my jeans. He leaned against me, his head heavy on my shoulder. Does Mom know? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Not yet, I said. I wanted to fix this before worrying her. She's going to take Carter's side, isn't she? She always does. His tone was bitter, resigned. Carter makes her think I'm the problem. That I disrespect him. She believes him because he's got money. Because since Dad died, Mom's scared of being alone. His words hit me like a slow-moving train. I thought of Grace, my daughter-in-law, who'd been so close to Mary. They were like sisters. When Mary died, Grace was gutted, and when Daniel followed, she was a ghost of herself. Carter swooped in, offering security a future. Or so it seemed. I put my arm around Ethan, careful not to jostle his bruises. Your mom loves you, Ethan, but love can blind us. Carter's good at that, twisting people. We're going to fix this, I promised. And when we do, you and I are going to have a long talk about everything that's been happening in that house. He nodded, but his eyes were heavy, fighting sleep. I wanted to keep him talking, to keep him grounded, but he needed rest. The precinct was quiet now, just the hum of the lights and the occasional murmur from the desk. Camacho passed by a few times, shooting us nervous glances. Carter was still in the waiting area. I could feel his presence like a storm cloud. I thought about my years on the force, my reputation for being a hard-ass, for never taking bribes or cutting corners. It made me enemies, but it also made me men like April who carried that same fire. I wasn't just fighting for Ethan tonight. I was fighting for every kid trapped in a system that sometimes protected the wrong people. Time crawled. I checked my watch, nearly 2 hours since April left. Ethan dozed against me, his breathing uneven. I kept my hand on his shoulder, a silent promise that I wasn't going anywhere. Then the main door burst open and April strode in, flanked by an older woman with sharp eyes and a stern-looking figure I recognized instantly, District Attorney Melinda Moss. And trailing behind was a tiny elderly woman clutching a phone, Mrs. Klein, I assumed. Camacho's face went white as a sheet when he saw Moss. Carter stood in the waiting area, his bandaged nose and swollen lip doing little to hide his shock. Moss's voice cut through the room like a blade. Inspector Camacho, Lieutenant Roberts, has reported possible irregularities. Show me the file and the video, now, Camacho stammered. Leading Moss to his office, April approached the cell, her eyes gleaming. We got something, she whispered. Mrs. Klein's footage from 3 days ago, Carter shoving Ethan against the door. And audio. He threatened him. Hope surged in my chest, warm and fierce. For the first time since that 3:14 a.m. call, I felt like we might actually win this. The system was rotten. I'd known that longer than most, but there were still people like April, like Moss, who fought for what was right. I looked at Ethan, still half asleep, and squeezed his shoulder. We're getting there, kid. Mrs. Klein shuffled over her small frame, belying a no-nonsense attitude. You're the grandpa, she said, peering at me through thick glasses. The boy talks about you all the time. Thank you for coming, ma'am, I said. Mrs. Klein, she corrected, winking at Ethan. And don't thank me. That man, she jerked her head toward Carter, is a devil in a suit. I've seen how he acts when he thinks no one's watching. Ethan managed a weak smile, gratitude shining through his exhaustion. Mrs. Klein patted his hand. Brought you a donut, kid, but these cops wouldn't let me give it to you, said it might have a file in it. She chuckled a dry, raspy sound, as if I'd know how to bake one. The office door opened and Moss emerged, her face grim. Camacho trailed behind, sweating through his shirt. Carter tried to approach an all-false charm. D.A. Moss, a pleasure. I'm the victim here. Contact a lawyer. Mr. Vance, Moss said, her tone ice-cold. She turned to the cell. Mr. Anderson, we've reviewed the case. Significant procedural issues. Lieutenant Roberts released Mr. Alvarado. April's grin was pure satisfaction as she unlocked the cell. Ethan stood legs shaky, looking at me like he couldn't believe it. I can go? Yes, Moss confirmed, but stay available for statements. Carter's face twisted with rage. This is outrageous. You're letting my attacker walk. The evidence suggests otherwise. Moss snapped. Tampering with evidence is a serious crime, Mr. Vance. Cooperate or face worse. Camacho avoided Carter's pleading look, his own career crumbling before his eyes. Moss wasn't done. Inspector Camacho, you're relieved of duty pending investigation. Surrender your badge and weapon. His hands shook as he complied, his world collapsing. April took charge of the precinct, her authority unquestioned. As we stepped outside, the sky was turning gray with dawn. The air was cool clean, a stark contrast to the stifling precinct. Ethan walked beside me, silent but lighter, like a weight had lifted. Where are we going, Grandpa? He asked. My place, I said. You're not going back to that house. Not now. In the car, Ethan relaxed the tension easing from his shoulders. But I knew this wasn't over. This isn't the end, is it? He asked, reading my silence. No, Ethan, I said, gripping the wheel. It's just the beginning. The sky was just beginning to pale, that thin, bruised color you get right before the sun decides whether to show up. I stood on the precinct steps with Ethan's hand in mine, his fingers cold and trembling. Behind us, the heavy door slammed shut like a judge's gavel. Camacho's badge lay on the duty desk inside, surrendered. Carter's smug face had cracked into something ugly when Moss told him to lawyer up. And April had taken command of the 7th precinct before the coffee in the pot had even cooled. But none of that felt like victory yet. Not while Ethan's left eye was still swelling shut, not while the cut on his eyebrow glistened under the streetlight. I opened the passenger door of my Ford. Get in, kid. You're not spending another minute in this place. Ethan hesitated, glancing back at the building as if it might reach out and drag him inside again. They really let me go. They did, and they're not getting you back. I nudged him gently. He climbed in, wincing when the seatbelt brushed his bruised cheek. I slid behind the wheel, started the engine, and pulled away from the curb. The precinct shrank in the rear-view mirror, its neon sign flickering like a dying heartbeat. Ethan stared straight ahead, knuckles white on his lap. Talk to me, I said softly. He swallowed. I keep thinking it was a dream. The cell. Camacho's face. Mrs. Klein showing up with her phone like some kind of avenging grandma. A shaky laugh escaped him, then died. I thought no one would believe me. People did. People do. I reached over, squeezed his knee. You did the hardest part making that call. Silence settled between us, not heavy, just tired. The streets were empty, the city holding its breath before rush hour. I took the long way home past the all-night diner, where Daniel and I used to grab pancakes after Little League games. Ethan noticed. You always take this route when you're thinking hard, he said. Old habit. Your dad hated shortcuts. He managed half a smile. He said shortcuts were for people who didn't know where they were going. Smart man. We pulled into my driveway just as the first real light of dawn touched the roof. The house looked smaller than I remembered, single-story faded blue paint, the porch swing creaking in the breeze. Ethan had spent half his childhood here after Daniel died. It was supposed to be a safe place. Tonight it had to be again. Inside, I flicked on the kitchen light. The room smelled of coffee grounds and the lemon polish I used once a month, whether it needed it or not. Ethan dropped into a chair, shoulders sagging. I filled the kettle more for the ritual than the caffeine. Shower first, I said, then food, then sleep. He nodded but didn't move. Grandpa, what happens when Mom comes home? The kettle clicked on. I leaned against the counter, choosing my words carefully. We tell her the truth, all of it, and we show her the evidence. She won't want to believe it, his voice cracked. She loves him. Love doesn't mean ignoring bruises on your kid's face. I kept my tone steady, but inside I was raging at Carter at Grace for being blind at myself for not seeing the signs sooner. We'll give her time. But Ethan, you're not going back there until it's safe. That's non-negotiable. He looked at me, then really looked, and I saw the boy who used to ask me if monsters were real. You promise crossed my heart. He stood slow and careful and disappeared down the hall. I heard the shower start, the pipes groaning, like they always did. While the water ran, I pulled out my phone. April had texted Moss wants statements tomorrow, 10 a.m. Mrs. Klein's full footage is gold, 3 separate incidents, audio clear. Carter's lawyer already called. He's panicking. I typed back, Ethan's safe. Tell Moss we'll be there. The shower shut off. Ethan emerged in one of Daniel's old t-shirts, sleeves hanging past his elbows, hair damp and sticking up. He looked 12 instead of 16. I slid a mug of chamomile across the table. Drink, then bed. He wrapped both hands around the mug like it was the only warm thing in the world. I keep replaying it, the way Carter's fist felt, the sound when I hit the table, the cops cuffing me while he stood there bleeding and smiling. I sat across from him. That smile, that's what monsters wear when they think they've won. He sipped the tea, eyes distant. I should have fought harder, or run, or stop. I reached across, covered his hand with mine. You survived. That's what matters. And you called me. That took guts. A tear slipped down his cheek, cutting a clean line through the dry blood. I was so scared you wouldn't answer. I'll always answer, Ethan. Always. He finished the tea and I walked him to the guest room, still the same twin bed with the spaceship sheets he'd picked out at 10. He crawled under the covers without protest. I pulled the quilt up to his chin like I used to when he had nightmares about storms. Grandpa. His voice was thick with sleep. Thank you for coming. Try and keep me away. I kissed his forehead, tasting salt and hospital antiseptic. I left the door cracked, the hallway nightlight on. In the kitchen, I poured myself a finger of bourbon medicinal, I told myself, and sat at the table. The house was quiet except for the tick of the old wall clock. I stared at the phone knowing Grace would call soon. I rehearsed what I'd say, how I'd keep my voice calm when what I wanted was to roar. At 7:42 a.m. the phone buzzed. Grace, I answered on the second ring. Hey, sweetheart, Dad. Her voice was hoarse, panicked. Carter just called. He said Ethan attacked him and you got him released. What the hell is going on? I closed my eyes. Grace listened carefully. Ethan is with me. He's safe. Carter beat him. There's video. There's a medical report. The DA is involved. Come home. We'll talk when you're here. Silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. Then I'm on the first flight. I land at noon. Text me the details. I'll pick you up. Another pause. Dad, is it bad? Bad enough that Ethan spent the night in a cell because Carter lied. Bad enough that a corrupt inspector tried to bury it. But it's being handled. Come home. She whispered, okay, and the line went dead. I set the phone down and rubbed my face. The bourbon burned going down, but it steadied me. I needed to be rock solid for what came next. Ethan slept until 9:30. I heard him pad into the kitchen, barefoot, eyes puffy but clearer. I had eggs scrambling, toast popping. He slid into a chair without a word. Eat, I said, sliding a plate in front of him. Then we're going to the DA's office. You up for it? He nodded, fork trembling slightly as he speared a bite of egg. I practiced what I'll say. In the mirror. Like you taught me for school presentations. Good man. We ate in companionable silence. When he finished, he looked at me squarely. I'm not letting him win, Grandpa. He already lost the second you dialed my number. At 10:05, April pulled up in an unmarked sedan. She stepped out in civilian clothes, jeans, blazer badge on her belt. Morning, Inspector. Ready? Ethan grabbed a hoodie. I locked the door behind us. The DA's office was a hive of controlled chaos. Moss met us in a conference room with windows overlooking the courthouse square. Mrs. Klein was already there, perched on a chair like a bird of prey, her phone plugged into a laptop. Mr. Anderson. Ethan. Moss shook our hands, her grip firm. Let's go over everything. We sat. April cued the footage. The first clip was from 3 nights ago, Carter shoving Ethan against the front door, voice snarling, "You'll learn respect if I have to beat it into you." The second was from a month earlier, Carter grabbing Ethan's arm hard enough to leave fingerprints hissing. "Tell your mother and I'll make sure you regret it." The third was the night of the arrest, timestamped 11:07 p.m. Carter drunk, swinging, Ethan ducking, then pushing back in self-defense. The fall, the call to 911. Ethan's breath hitched beside me. I put a hand on his back. Mrs. Klein spoke up. "I've got 6 more clips if you need them. That man's been terrorizing the boy for months." I kept recording because I knew one day someone would listen. Moss's eyes were steel. "We're listening now." She turned to Ethan. "Your statement will be recorded. You tell the truth exactly as it happened. No embellishing, no holding back." Can you do that? Ethan straightened. Yes, ma'am. The recording started. Ethan's voice was steady at first, then cracked when he described the first time Carter hit him 6 months ago over a B in algebra. He talked about the threats, the way Carter would wait until Grace was at work or asleep. He talked about the fear that lived in his stomach like a second heartbeat. I sat silent, throat tight. I'd spent decades listening to victims, but hearing my own grandson lay it bare was a different kind of pain. When he finished, Moss stopped the recording. Thank you, Ethan. That was brave. April added quietly, Camacho's been suspended. Carter's accounts are frozen. We're pulling his business records, looks like bribery at City Hall. This is bigger than one night. Moss nodded. Ethan, you're free to go home with your grandfather. Mr. Vance is being brought in for questioning this afternoon. He won't be released without charges. Ethan looked at me, eyes wide. It's really over. Not yet, I said, but the tides turned. We stepped out into the hallway. Grace was waiting, travel-worn eyes red. She ran to Ethan, pulling him into a crushing hug. He stiffened at first, then melted into her. I'm so sorry, she whispered into his hair. I didn't see. I should have seen. Ethan didn't answer, just held on tighter. Grace looked at me over his shoulder, tears streaming. Take us home, Dad. Please, Way. I led them to the car. The sun was high now, burning off the morning chill. As we drove, Ethan fell asleep against the window, Grace's hand on his knee. I glanced at them in the rear view and felt something shift inside me. Relief, yes, but also resolve. Carter thought he could break my family. He was wrong. We had the truth on our side now. And the truth, like dawn, has a way of burning away the dark. The drive back from the DA's office felt like crossing a border into a country I didn't recognize. Ethan slept against the window, his breath fogging the glass in small, steady puffs. Grace sat beside him in the back seat, one hand resting on his knee, as if she were afraid he'd vanish if she let go. Her eyes were fixed on the bruises blooming across his face, purple, yellow, ugly, and every time she blinked, fresh tears welled up. I kept my hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel, eyes on the road, but my mind was racing through everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. We pulled into my driveway just past noon. The house looked smaller in daylight, almost fragile under the bright sun. I quit the engine. For a moment, none of us moved. Home, I said quietly. Grace's voice cracked. I don't know what that word means anymore. Ethan stirred, rubbing his good eye. Can we just go inside? I nodded. We climbed out slowly like soldiers stepping off a battlefield. The gravel crunched under our shoes. I unlocked the front door and the familiar smell of lemon polish and old wood wrapped around us. Ethan dropped his hoodie on the floor and headed straight for the couch, curling into the corner like a wounded animal. Grace hovered, unsure whether to follow him or give him space. I went to the kitchen, started the coffee maker, and pulled out the good mugs, the ones Mary had painted with tiny blue sailboats. Routine, normalcy, anything to keep the world from spinning off its axis. Grace appeared in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. Dad, I need to see the videos. I poured her a cup. You sure? She nodded, jaw tight. I have to know what I missed. I set up my laptop on the kitchen table. April had emailed me the files, Mrs. Klein's footage, the precinct's edited clip, the medical report. I clicked play. The first clip, Carter shoving Ethan against the front door 3 nights ago. The audio was crystal clear. You'll learn respect if I have to beat it into you. Grace's hand flew to her mouth. The second, Carter grabbing Ethan's arm in the garage, twisting until the boy cried out, Tell your mother and I'll make sure you regret it. The third, the night of the arrest. Carter drunk, swinging wildly, Ethan ducking, pushing back. The fall, the 911 call. Grace watched without blinking. When it ended, she sat very still, coffee untouched. Then she stood, walked to the sink, and vomited. I rubbed her back in slow circles the way I used to when she had morning sickness with Ethan. Breathe, sweetheart. She straightened, wiping her mouth with a paper towel. I let that monster into our home. You didn't know. I should have. Her voice broke. He smiled at me every morning, kissed me goodnight. And while I was asleep, he was... She couldn't finish. Ethan appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. Mom. Grace turned, tears streaming. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. He crossed the room in 3 steps and let her pull him into a hug. They clung to each other, sobbing. I stood back, giving them space, but my chest ached with the weight of it. After a minute, Grace pulled away, cupping Ethan's face. We're leaving him. Today, I'm filing for divorce, and I'm pressing charges. Ethan nodded, relief flooding his features. Can we get my books? And my laptop? We'll go together, I said. With police escort. April's already arranged it. Grace looked at me, eyes fierce. I want to see him. I want to look him in the eye and tell him it's over. I hesitated. He's being questioned right now. Might not be safe. I don't care. I need to say it. I understood. Sometimes you have to face the monster to believe it's real. We piled into my car again. April met us at the house on Jacaranda Drive, 2 patrol cars idled at the curb, officers standing by. The lawn was manicured, the porch swings swaying gently. It looked like any other suburban dream. April handed Grace a warrant. We're seizing the security system. Anything you need, grab it fast. Grace nodded, keys shaking in her hand. Ethan stayed close to me as we stepped inside. The air smelled of Carter's cologne, sharp, expensive, suffocating. Grace moved like a ghost, packing clothes into a duffel, grabbing Ethan's laptop and a stack of novels from his room. I followed Ethan to the garage, his sanctuary where he'd built model rockets with Daniel. He froze in the doorway. The wall was dented where Carter had slammed him. A smear of dried blood still clung to the concrete. Ethan's breath hitched. I put a hand on his shoulder. We're taking the rockets too. He managed a nod. We loaded the boxes into the trunk. Grace appeared, face pale. I'm ready. April approached. Carter's not here. His lawyer says he's cooperating remotely. We've got eyes on his known locations. Grace's jaw tightened. He's running. Looks like it, April said. We've frozen his accounts. He won't get far. We drove back to my house in silence. Ethan fell asleep again in the back seat. Grace stared out the window, knuckles white. That night I made spaghetti, Ethan's favorite. We ate at the kitchen table, the 3 of us moving carefully around the new reality. Grace kept touching Ethan's hair, his arm, as if reassuring herself he was real. After dinner, she tucked him into bed, then came to the living room where I was nursing a bourbon. He asked if Carter could still hurt us, she said, voice small. I set the glass down. Not if I have anything to say about it. She sat beside me, head in her hands. I keep thinking about the signs. The way Ethan flinched when Carter raised his voice. The long sleeves in summer. I told myself it was teenage moodiness. Manipulators are experts at gaslighting, I said. He made you doubt your own eyes. I should have protected him. You're protecting him now. She looked up, eyes red. I filed the divorce papers online, emergency protective order. He's not allowed within 500 feet. Good. My phone buzzed April. Carter's car found abandoned near the airport. No flight record. He's in the wind. I showed Grace the text. Her face hardened. He's not coming back without a fight. Let him come, I said. We'll be ready. The next morning, Ethan woke early. He sat at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal, staring at the protective order printout. He's really gone. For now, Ethan pushed the cereal around. I keep waiting for the door to slam, for him to yell my name. I sat across from him. That sound is gone. You hear me? It's gone. He nodded, but his eyes were distant. Grace joined us, coffee in hand. I start therapy tomorrow. Ethan too. We're going to heal. Together. Ethan looked at her, then at me. Can we repaint my room? At your house blue, like the old one? Whatever you want, kid. The days blurred. Grace moved into the guest room. Ethan claimed the back bedroom, the one with the skylight. We painted it ocean blue, hung as rocket models from the ceiling. Mrs. Klein dropped by with a casserole and a new memory card full of footage, just in case. April updated us daily. Carter's business partners were flipping city hall contracts, unraveling. Camacho was singing to the DA, trading names for a reduced sentence. One afternoon, Ethan and I were in the backyard fixing the porch swing when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Old man. Carter's voice low, venomous. You think you've won? My blood turned to ice. Where are you? Doesn't matter. You took everything. My wife, my reputation, my freedom. You took swings at a child. You don't get to play victim. A bitter laugh. Grace will come crawling back. She always does. She filed for divorce. You're done, we'll see. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, heart pounding. Ethan looked up from the swing. Was that him? I nodded. He's desperate. Desperate men make mistakes. That night I slept with my service pistol on the nightstand. 2 days later, Grace insisted on going back to the house alone with police escort to grab the rest of Ethan's things. I argued, but she was adamant. I need to face it, Dad. I need to prove it doesn't own me. April assigned 2 officers. They reported back house. Empty alarm unset Carter's closet half cleared. He'd been there. Recently. Ethan and I played chess in the living room waiting. The phone rang Carter again. Listen carefully, he snarled. Your daughter-in-law is with me. Bring Ethan to the abandoned warehouse, 54 Industrial Avenue. 1 hour, just you two. Cops show she dies. The line clicked dead. Ethan's eyes went wide. Mom, I was already grabbing my keys. Stay here. No. His voice was steel. It's my mom. I'm coming. I looked at him, 16 bruised but standing tall. I saw Daniel in his eyes. Fine, but you do exactly what I say. We drove in silence, the city blurring past. April texted undercover units en route. Wait for signal. But Carter's deadline was ticking. We pulled up a block from the warehouse. The building loomed red brick, broken windows, graffiti bleeding down the walls. Carter's black sedan sat by the side entrance. Ethan's hand found mine. I'm scared. Me too, I admitted, but we're doing this together. We stepped out into the fading light. The warehouse door creaked open, a black mouth waiting to swallow us whole. Carter's voice echoed from inside. Time's up, old man. Bring the boy. I took Ethan's hand. We walked into the dark. The warehouse smelled of rust oil and something older fear may be baked into the concrete over decades of deals gone wrong. My boots crunched on broken glass as Ethan and I stepped through the side door. The only light came from cracked skylights high above thin blades of late afternoon sun slicing through dust motes that floated like ghosts. Somewhere deep inside, water dripped in a slow, maddening rhythm. Carter's voice bounced off the metal walls. Back here, Ed, both of you, nice and slow. Ethan's hand was ice in mine. I squeezed once I'm here and we moved forward between towering stacks of abandoned crates. Each step echoed. My heart hammered so loud I was sure Carter could hear it. We rounded a corner into the main bay. The space opened up like a cathedral of decay-rusted machinery chains, dangling from rafters, a single folding chair in the center. Grace sat in it, wrists zip-tied to the armrest, duct tape over her mouth. Her eyes were wide, mascara streaked, but when she saw us, she shook her head frantically. Go back! Carter stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder, the other holding a matte black revolver pointed at her temple. His suit was wrinkled tie, askew hair greasy. The polished businessman was gone. What stood there was a cornered animal, teeth bared. Phones on the ground, he barked. Kick them over. I pulled mine out, slowly, tossed it. Ethan did the same. They skittered across the concrete and disappeared under a pallet. Carter's eyes flicked to Ethan. You little shit. Look what you started. Ethan's voice didn't waver. Let my mom go. Carter laughed a dry, ugly sound. Still giving orders. After everything, he pressed the barrel harder against Grace's head. She whimpered behind the tape. I stepped forward. Hands open. You want me, Carter? Let them walk. No. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I want you to feel what it's like to lose everything. Like you took from me. You lost it the first time you raised a fist to a child, I said. His face twisted. Discipline. He needed discipline. Grace shook her head violently, tears spilling. Ethan took a step. You needed help. You're sick. Carter's gun swung toward him. Shut up. I moved instinctively, putting myself between the barrel and my grandson. Eyes on me, Carter. This is between us, he sneered. Big hero, retired cop with the rusty badge. You think that scares me? I think you're out of moves, I said. Accounts frozen, partners flipping, Camacho singing. You're done. His hand trembled. I still have this. He tapped the gun against Grace's cheek. She flinched. I forced my voice calm. Put it down. Walk away. You disappear. Maybe you live. Live like a rat. He spat on the floor. No, you took my life. Now I take yours. Grace's muffled scream vibrated through the tape. Ethan lunged instinct, not thought. Carter swung the gun toward him. Time slowed. I saw the hammercock. Saw Ethan's face brave, terrified. Saw Grace thrashing against the ties. I moved. My shoulder took the impact as I slammed into Carter sideways. The gunshot cracked like thunder, deafening in the enclosed space. Pain exploded in my left arm, hot, wet, spreading. But momentum carried us both to the ground. The revolver skittered across the concrete, spinning into shadow. Carter roared, clawing at my face. I drove my knee into his gut. He doubled, gasping. I rolled, pinning at his arm, my blood soaking his shirt. Ethan, get your mom. Ethan scrambled to Grace, ripping the tape from her mouth. She sobbed his name. He sawed at the zip ties with a shard of glass from the floor. Carter bucked beneath me. You shot me, you bastard! No, I growled, pressing my forearm into his throat. You shot yourself the day you touched my family. He thrashed, nails raking my neck. I tasted copper. My vision blurred at the edges, but adrenaline kept me anchored. Grace was free. She and Ethan dragged the chair back, putting distance between them and us. Grandpa Ethan's voice cracked. You're bleeding. I'm fine, I grunted, as Carter's knee connected with my ribs. Air whooshed from my lungs. Then movement in the shadows. Police, drop it. Hands where I can see them, April's voice, sharp, commanding. Flashlight beams cut through the gloom. 3 officers fanned out, weapons trained. Carter froze beneath me. I rolled off, clutching my shoulder. Blood pulsed between my fingers. April kicked the revolver farther away, then knelt beside me. Talk to me, Inspector. Graze the bone, I rasped. Get him cuffed. 2 officers hauled Carter up. He fought, screaming obscenities, but they slammed him against a crate, wrists locked in steel. Grace ran to me, Ethan right behind. She pressed her scarf against my wound, tears falling on my cheek. Dad, oh God, I'm okay. I lied. The pain was white hot, but I'd live. Ethan's hands shook as he helped hold the scarf. You took the bullet for me. Would have taken 10, I said. April radioed for paramedics. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Carter was dragged past us, face purple with rage. This isn't over. I have friends, powerful friends. April leaned in close. Your friends are testifying against you, Vance. You're done. They shoved him into a cruiser outside. The door slammed. The warehouse filled with uniforms, evidence techs, photographers, medics. I was lifted onto a stretcher, Grace and Ethan on either side. In the ambulance, the paramedic cut away my sleeve. The bullet had torn a furrow along my deltoid, missing the joint by inches. Through and through, he said. You'll keep the arm. Old man. Grace held my hands so tight I lost feeling in my fingers. Ethan sat at my feet, eyes red but steady. I thought I lost you both, I whispered. Grace kissed my knuckles. You saved us. Ethan added, voice thick. You're the bravest person I know. I managed a weak smile. Family looks out for family. At the hospital, they stitched me up, 22 sutures, local anesthetic. The smell of iodine sharpened my nose. April visited between shifts, bringing coffee and updates. Carter's lawyered up, but it's theater. We've got kidnapping, attempted murder, assault on a minor stacked so high he'll never see daylight. And Grace safe, Ethan too. Protective custody if needed, but I don't think he'll get near them again. I nodded. Exhaustion pulling at me. Tell Moss, good work. She's already drafting the Anderson protocol. Wants your input when you're up. I closed my eyes. The pain meds were kicking in warm and heavy. Ethan slipped in later, carrying a paper cup of vending machine hot chocolate. He sat beside the bed. Hey, hero, I said. He rolled his eyes but smiled. You stole my line. We sat in silence a moment. Then I keep replaying it. The gunshot. You falling. I thought. His voice cracked. I'm here, I said, and so are you. That's what matters. He leaned his head on the bed rail. I want to help other kids. Like Mrs. Klein helped me. Like you did. You will, I said. You already are. Grace came in with a teddy bear from the gift shop, ridiculous, but Ethan hugged it anyway. We laughed, the sound fragile but real. That night I dreamed of the warehouse, but in the dream Carter's gun jammed. Ethan stood tall, Grace cut her own ties, and I didn't bleed. I woke to sunlight through the blinds, Ethan asleep in the chair, Grace curled on the cot. My shoulder throbbed, but the pain felt earned. Outside the window, the city moved on traffic pigeon's life. Inside, my family breathed, and for the first time in years, I believed in tomorrow. The hospital discharged me on a Tuesday morning, the kind of bright, crisp day that makes you believe in second chances. My shoulder was stitched, slung, and throbbing like a bad tooth, but the doctors swore I'd regain full motion with therapy. Ethan carried my small duffel while Grace pushed the wheelchair the nurses insisted on. I grumbled the whole way to the curb, but secretly I liked having them both fussing over me. We drove home in silence, at first the radio off, the city sliding past in soft focus. Ethan broke it. "I start physical therapy tomorrow. For my wrist." The one Carter twisted. Grace reached back from the passenger seat, squeezed his knee. "We'll go together," I nodded. "And I've got my own PT. We'll make it a family field trip." Ethan snorted. "Grandpa, you hate exercise. Only when it's voluntary." He laughed, really laughed, and the sound filled the car like sunlight. At the house, Mrs. Klein was waiting on the porch with a casserole and a grin. "Heard you took a bullet, Inspector. Figured you'd need something that isn't hospital jello." I hugged her with my good arm. "You're a saint." Inside, the place already felt different. Ethan's rocket model spun lazily from the ceiling in his new blue room. Grace had hung fresh curtains in the guest room, soft yellow like dawn. My recliner had a new throw pillow that read, "World's okay as Grandpa. Ethan's doing, no doubt." That night, we ate casserole on the couch watching an old John Wayne movie. Halfway through, Ethan fell asleep against my good shoulder. Grace covered him with a quilt, then sat on my other side. "He hasn't slept through the night since he was 10, she whispered. "He will now." She leaned her head on my arm. "I keep waiting to wake up." I kissed her hair. "This is the waking up." The trial came faster than any of us expected. 3 weeks of testimony, evidence, and Carter's increasingly hollow denials. Ethan took the stand in a navy blazer 2 sizes too big, Daniel's old one. He spoke clearly, calmly, describing every slap, every threat, every time Carter made him feel small. The courtroom was silent except for the scratch of reporters' pens. When Carter's lawyer tried to paint Ethan as a troubled teen, April stood and played Mrs. Klein's full archive, 16 clips, time-stamped undeniable. The jury didn't look at Carter the same after that. I testified too. My voice shook when I described the warehouse, the gunshot, the moment I thought I'd lost them both. The prosecutor asked if I regretted tackling an armed man at 63. "Regret," I said. "I'd do it again tomorrow." Grace's turn was the hardest. She detailed the slow erosion of trust, Carter's charm, the gaslighting, the way she'd convinced herself Ethan was exaggerating. When she played the voicemail, Carter left the night he fled. "You'll come crawling back, Grace. You always do." The jury leaned forward as one. Sentencing day, we sat in the front row. Carter wore orange cuffs clinking when he stood. The judge didn't mince words. "Carter Vance, you abused a child, kidnapped a woman, and attempted murder. This court sentences you to 22 years, no parole for 15. Camacho got 12 with review after 8 for cooperating." Carter didn't look at us when they led him away. I think he couldn't. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Moss held a press conference unveiling the Anderson Protocol, new rules for digital evidence in domestic cases, metadata verification, independent forensic review, mandatory neighbor cam outreach. She credited Ethan's call, my refusal to back down, April's integrity. Ethan spoke last. His voice didn't waver. "If you're scared, make the call. Someone will answer." The applause was deafening. That night, we celebrated quietly, pizza on the porch, Mrs. Klein's donuts for dessert. Ethan raised his soda. To new beginnings. We clinked. Months passed. Ethan started at State University pre-law. Grace got a promotion, moved into her own apartment, but kept a drawer at my place. I ditched the cane, regained 90% shoulder motion, and took up woodworking, built Ethan a bookshelf shaped like a rocket. 1 year to the day after the warehouse, April, now Captain Roberts, called. 3 states adopted the protocol. "They're talking national." I smiled into the phone. "Tell them it starts with one scared kid and one stubborn grandpa." That evening, Ethan came over with takeout and a thick envelope. Inside, acceptance to a summer law program, full scholarship, DA Moss's personal recommendation. "Domestic violence prosecution track?" he said, eyes shining. "I want to be the one who answers the call." I pulled him into a one-armed hug. "You already are." Later on the porch, fireflies blinking in the dusk, Grace joined us with 3 beers. We sat in silence, watching the stars come out. Ethan spoke first. "I used to hate nights. Now I like them." Grace rested her head on my good shoulder. "Me too." I looked at the sky, same stars I'd watched the night Ethan called from the precinct. Back then, they'd felt cold, indifferent. Tonight, they felt like witnesses. Somewhere out there, Carter was counting days in a cell. Camacho was trading secrets for commissary. But here on my porch, my family breathed free. Ethan raised his bottle to the ones who answer. We drank, and somewhere a phone rang in the dark. I smiled knowing someone would pick up.